To pass by and pay us a visit and probably grab a cup of coffee. You know, it wouldn't hurt. My name is Philomena Mastiko. Welcome back from the weekend. Of course, it's a fuller house than the ordinary on every single day. As you're used to three faces, this Monday, you will probably be focusing on four beautiful and handsome faces. Myself, of course, Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono, Mollen, Kenyena, and the man himself, the baby. Okay, the baby of the day, and that is Felix Nkunda. I don't know, he has a lot to say about this. I know he'll be retaliating, but whether he likes it or not, it doesn't take away the fact. Welcome back from the weekend. It was a busy one. We had an Eid over there. I don't know if you were invited. Personally, I was, and I'm not complaining, only that there are some people who will definitely not be relating to that story, but it's okay. It's absolutely fine. Whether you were invited or not, we all serve a living God and we all believe in Allah. So it doesn't really matter, okay? Well, I need to know how my colleagues over here did spend their weekend. And maybe to start off with Robert, who really seems like maybe he was invited. I need to know his story. I know he has one to tell. Good morning, Robert.
A lovely morning to you and of course the entire team and our viewers. I must say I'm waiting for Christmas to pay back. That's what I must
This is not the energy we're starting with on a Monday,
I'm waiting
Robert.
for Christmas to pay back because I usually slaughter and but this time. But anyway, I can understand. And there was one sheikh who was over social media saying, "Jebata kuyise, racho ogenda, jebata kuyise to ogenda yo." Meaning, if you're not invited, please don't dare to come. And you see that times. But also, my weekend wasn't that very fine, and I want to call upon our good government to help with the issue of street children. I was driving along some traffic lights, and kids are kids. So these street kids were playing, and accidentally one ran abruptly into the road. And you saw how dangerous it was. The child was hit, cars was an accident.
Yes.
And I said, yes, kids are kids, even when they're on the street begging. For them, they will play. It's just normal, so we have to do away with that. But also, shockingly, was one of my good friends I won't mention, who had sent in his desire for that to represent, that is on the NRM ticket, representing in Yala.
Yes.
And guess what? The Central Executive Committee issues us a letter, that was on the 8th, which was Friday, saying they have chosen to retain their members in Yala for the good work they have done. Now remember, they had received over 130 people showing interest.
Yeah, because they were really advised to, you know, come and represent, so they shouldn't hold back.
Now, out of 130, then they are told we are retaining our members for the next term. So much as continuity and all this, some felt really perturbed. Why?
Well, we'll be figuring that one out, of course, as we go on, Robert. But also from Mollen. Good morning. How are you doing on this Monday morning?
Well, a very good morning to you. And obviously, I'll say I'm doing well, but I'm also not doing so well. There is a lot of anger. Now, I have a lot of Muslim friends. But guess what? Only one of them invited me. And I'm still thinking, why didn't I get more invites? Because I do have these guys as my friends. But I'll follow Robert's footsteps. Christmas is coming. There's time to pay back. But
the expectations were high.
Exactly. But I don't wish them bad. I'm just saying enjoy the moment, but just know that has to, you know, I'll quote Newton's third law of motion. To every action, there is an equal but opposite reaction. Just wait for that. But again, over the weekend, I'll tell you one thing that I'm happy about. Government, through Ministry of Water and Environment, are embarking on a journey to restore River Seziwa. Now, this river has been working as a water catchment for a lot of regions within central Uganda. And of course, now with all these increasing industries, with of course encroachment about farming activities, it seems like people have been, encroaching on its territories, and government feels this is something that we should be working on. And this call should even have come in earlier, because we wouldn't be dealing with most of the flash flooding, because we do know most of those, come from the fact fact that most of these water catchment areas have been degraded. So when personally for me, I see efforts to restore rivers like that have really worked great, especially for areas around Jinja, Mukono, all those areas. Most of their catchment region is towards River Sezibwa. So that was good news for me, and at least probably puts a smile.
Oh, well, Mollen and Robert are over here on a vengeance plan. I don't know whether this is the same story Felix has to tell. Felix, I don't know. Are these sentiments mutual for you as well, or you moved on?
No.
Good morning.
No, good morning to you, Philo, and of course the team, and of course good morning to all the Good Morning Uganda family out there. My Eid was okay. I had I have lots of Muslim friends, and clearly none of them forgot me. Yeah, I had to pace around trying to find where exactly I'll have a good meal, but I had a good Eid, fairly good. And the weekend as well was a little bit busy, but was okay.
It passed. You don't
absolutely,
really have
absolutely. Yeah, I'm not hanging on anything against anyone.
You wouldn't complain because you were invited. You're not in our shoes. If you were in our shoes and you're one of those people that were not invited, trust me, right now you'd be feeling the same way.
Felix.
You're just lucky you were invited.
Felix, so how many invites and how did you make things work out?
No, of course I had to give excuses for some. Okay. But I attended. I just went to 2 homes. Just casually, just
you eat, you move. You
don't really eating. I mean, it's just about sharing the moment with them and being with them. But it was good. It was really good. Trust me. Of course, you know how these guys do the dishes. Rice. But it was awesome.
The only trying moment is one time I was invited and I wasn't used to sitting down.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a hard
sitting
one.
down, so I sat on this, and the speed. At the end of the day, you change your sitting position, then but these guys are comfortable.
It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and for them, they're enjoying. I felt like, can you give me something at the dining? But they told me for us, we share.
Sadly for you, when you go to Rome, you behave like
maybe that's why they didn't even call you again. Now you know.
Anyway, Robert and Mollen, there is still a whole lot of time for, to reconsider. Vengeance is not something good. I believe the Bible does not advocate for it. The Bible
You did not say vengeance. Some of us, I did quote Newton's third law. That's not revenge. That's a law that is out there.
Even in Uganda, there is a saying, I'm sure Felix knows it. Olugende njala terudda. Akuma okulya.
So we're not revenging, we are just stating facts.
Well, but also, depending on the current situation, I would totally understand, by the way, if invitations were not sent out. Commodity prices are really high. Everybody is trying to make sure they live in their means. So if you're going to have very many people come to your house this very specific day, you're not even sure whether you can cater to their needs.
Yeah, but even also to not feel that many Muslim families weren't able to celebrate it.
Yes.
Probably it's not that they didn't call people out, but maybe they weren't. I know very many friends of mine who kept on telling me nja kusala, but not in this particular time because of the situation in the country.
And I mean, as of Friday, actually, the prices for beef had already gone up. Reports were coming in, and people were telling you there are high chances that beef may not be on the menu for this Eid. So if you are not invited, please try to understand. We are all Ugandans, and clearly the issues we are facing, on a global level, it's not just us. So we know it can pass. But yes, a lot did happen internationally, and of course locally we did see what happened over there in Sri Lanka. I don't know if you guys caught a wind of this, but I was really appalled. I was in shock after
People swimming in a presidential pool.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. Yes, and people were really mad. They were really frustrated. But if you also have been following up on over what has been happening in that country, there's been a lot. And I think by the time they made a decision to come from all these outskirts and to invade the main house or the big house of the president, a lot had been built up. And when I saw how people were taking pleasure in doing what they were doing and eventually even burnt down part of the residence, I was thinking, okay, I think the world is going crazy. It's terrible, I could say. Well, we need to let you know what happened here. If you're too busy over the weekend, well, it's time for you to know what happened, of course, on the local scene and on the international scene. We're going to be SMU in onto some of the news stories that made it to the news desk last night. Robert, what are we looking at this morning?
Well, we begin with the situation in Moroto where people are now exchanging firewood to get, that is, residue of booze as something to feed on. Now that shows how hard the situation is. That is, Moroto district residents are now exchanging firewood and charcoal for local brew residue as food. This comes at a time when famine beats deeper into communities following unfavorable weather and insecurity, which has left many without going to their gardens. However, the State Minister for Relief, Disaster and Refugees, Esther Anyakunyi, said Moroto will soon get food from government. By 5 a.m. in the morning, children and women are already moving from one corner to another of Moroto municipality with either a sack of charcoal or firewood on their heads with a jerrycan on top. They come from areas like Rupa, Nadabgat, Lapotuk, which are many kilometers away from Moroto municipality. They rotate in areas of Camp Swahili, Kakoleye, Lebaling, and Katanga, where they bucket their items. Many of their customers are local brewers of Ebutia and Eketwe. Although there is increase in commodity prices across the country, these children and women's items are valued at a very low cost, where many exchange them for local brew. Reaching at some of the brew spots, over 10 people were seated eating the dregs. Some can spend the whole day without getting buyers, and they have to sleep out to wait for another day. Early this week, the State Minister for Relief, Disaster and Refugees, Esther Davinia Anyakuni, promised that food will be coming to Karamoja soon.
Well, now, of course, still about local stories. The World Food Programme is currently feeding close to 1 million refugees in Uganda. Now, the Director of United Nations World Food Programme, that is Megeg Abraham, says they are now focusing on individuals, profiling to identify these in critical need of food. Now, Megeg says most of the food provided for the refugees is from the locals, hence needs to inject more in the local production. Now, he also says it's time now to support smallholder farmers, especially in Karamoja. Now, Megeg also added that are now supporting fish pond business in Karamoja to boost production. The United Nations World Food Programme is also working with refugees to send messages of social change to bring the situation of the refugees to an international community.
Now moving to infrastructure development, 1 unit out of the 6 at Karuma hydropower dam being installed to generate electricity in October this year. Timeline have also been laid out for the remaining 5 units to be fully functional in the first half of 2023. This was disclosed during a site visit and progress review of Uganda by Uganda's ambassador to China, Olivia Woneka, and China's ambassador to Uganda, Zhang Lihong. Intent was to ensure commitment and assurance from the ground players at Karuma, indicating that Uganda's flagship hydropower project will soon be on course. According to the contractor, work on the dam is now at 99%. Engineer Paul Tumwine from Uganda Electricity Generation Company explained the details of the remaining 1%. The project manager from Sinodro highlighted the delays on the project, attributing them to COVID-19 pandemic. The People's Republic of China's ambassador to Uganda stressed that all efforts will now be geared towards fruitful completion of the project. Karuma Hydropower Dam's construction started in 2014, and since then, this project has been met by delays and difficulties. However, once online, the dam will add 600 megawatts onto Uganda's national grid.
Now, one of Uganda's most renowned post-primary education institutions, that's Mount St. Mary's College, Namagunga, has hosted its 2022 Sports Day. Now, for many of those in outside world, it was hard believing the sight of excellent ladies at the institution, more commonly known as academic giants. Now, Mount St. Henry's College, Namagunga, has over the years that is cemented itself as Uganda's #1 post-primary education institution. Whereas most of us thought that it's purely an academic giant, the college in 2022 Sports Day proved otherwise, and the competition was between the four houses, including Vega, Triton, Orion and Aquila, in disciplines like athletics, bicycle race and aerobics.
Well, on the international scene, we start off with the UK Conservative candidates throwing hats in ring to replace Johnson. Some 11 members of the United Kingdom's Conservative Party have launched bids to replace Boris Johnson as the party's leader, with many pledging lower taxes and a clean start after Johnson's scandal-ridden premiership. Johnson announced on Thursday that he would step down after dozens of ministers and officials resigned over his handling of a series of scandals, including breaches of lockdown rules in gatherings at his Downing Street office. Johnson said he would lead a caretaker government until the party had chosen a new leader. The Conservative Party's 1922 Committee of Legislators, which sets rules for the party in Parliament, will set out the exact timetable for the contest after a meeting on Monday. Bob Blackman, an officer on the committee's executive, has said nominations will close on Tuesday evening and the field whittled down to just 2 candidates by July 21st. The contest would then go to a postal ballot with a new party leader who would then become Prime Minister, expected to be chosen by September. They would have the option to call a snap election. Moving over to Japanese police has admitted there were flaws in the security for former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was shot dead in the southern city of Nara on Friday. It is undeniable that there were problems in the security, this according to Nara Police Chief Tomaoki Onizuka. A gunman opened fire on Abe at a political campaign event, a crime that has profoundly shocked Japan's Sunday's elections for the upper house, which went ahead as planned. Voting began at 7 a.m. local time, just 2 days after Abe's assassination, and closed at 9 p.m. Exit polls suggested the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, in which Abe was a leading and a hugely influential figure, and its junior coalition partner, Komeito, were set to retain their majority. A moment of silence for Abe was held at the LDP Tokyo headquarters as members waited for the results to come in, according to a report from Reuters. Elections seen as a referendum on the current government. But a big victory for the LDP would strengthen the current Prime Minister's ability to push though his key policies, including a doubling of defense spending. And looking at what is happening in South Africa, at least 15 people have been shot dead in a bar in the South African township of Soweto, according to police. Police said gunmen entered the Orlando East Tavern in the early hours of Sunday morning and started firing randomly at a group of young people. They then fled the scene in a white minibus. No motive for the attack has been established, according to what police says. However, several more people are in a critical condition in hospital. The victims are believed to be between 19 and 35 years old. Bodies were on top of each other with blood all over. We were looking for our loved ones. We had to jump over bodies looking for our brothers. This, according to one of the local residents. Gauteng Province's head of police, General Elias Mawela, told the BBC the shooting appears to have been a cold-blooded attack on innocent tavern patrons. A press statement released by his office said the gunmen had been armed with rifles and 9mm pistols when they entered the bar. Police are searching for the suspects, whose identities remain unknown for now.
In weather and climate news, Portugal deploys 3,000 firefighters to battle heatwave blazes. Now, wildfires are sweeping across northern and central Portugal, where an estimated 3,000 firefighters and more than 60 aircrafts are battling to quell down the flames amid scorching temperatures. Authorities said 12 firefighters and 7 civilians required medical assistance to treat minor injuries caused by the blazes. A Portuguese state television, RTP, and other local media reported on Sunday. The European Union on Sunday activated its firefighting air fleet assistance program that allows member nations to share resources. Spain, which has endured wildfires recently, quickly responded by mobilizing 2 firefighting planes to send to the Iberian neighbor, according to the EU Crisis Commissioner Janez Lanerque. Portuguese government said it has deployed 60 aircraft to support its ground crews, and Portugal has long suffered large and sometimes tragic wildfires, and in 2017, out-of-control wildfires killed more than 100 people. The EU says climate change has the continent facing one of its hardest years for natural disasters such as droughts and wildfires.
Well, there's a lot of sadness happening, especially if we're going to make reference to South Africa. I mean, for the last couple of weeks, we saw about 17 teenagers who died of unknown circumstances. These were in a bar. And it hasn't really been so long, and now we're looking at many more people dying. What's happening? Maybe just to get, to pick a brain from you, Felix, what do you think is the cause? Why are people losing it? Why would you walk into a bar and start shooting at innocent people?
Well, I think this is quite unfortunate and quite painful.
Yes.
But when you look at South Africa in particular, you notice that there's a lot of ghettos, and majorly in the Gauteng province where these 2 incidents have happened, or even more than 2. There's a lot of gun violence.
Yes.
But there's a big gap between the rich people and the poor people. For those of our viewers, or any of us who have been to South Africa, you notice that when you stand in the most high places, let's imagine like Kololo, the Kololos of Kampala,
yes,
you see over big slums of ghettos, the Sowetos. And now, because of this kind of challenge, one, there's big unemployment. People attribute it to the fact that some people in South Africa don't like working. They say, I don't want to confirm to that. But I know that because of this gap between the rich people and the poor people, there are so many ghettos. And because of this, and of course there's a lot of drugs, abuse of drugs. If you do notice, a lot of abuse of drugs in South Africa.
Yes.
That's what's been attributed to all of these, if you do listen to most of the people who are trying to weigh in about what's happening there. But also, the other challenge is that there has been a lot of infiltration of like non-South Africans,
yes,
from Zimbabwe, Namibia, Lesotho, who are jobless, who are, because there are a lot of porous borders, if I could use, so probably that is also attributes a lot to what's happening, the cause of this kind of abuse of guns and criminality.
It's really sad. You know how they say every country has its own burden that it's carrying.
Surely,
yeah.
surely.
And I feel like South Africa is really having quite the biggest part of it right now. I mean, we know South Africa for xenophobic attacks. We have seen it not happening once, not twice. We're looking at people dying mysteriously, young people. You know, if we're talking about the teenagers who died mysteriously, the age range was about 17 to 35, and now we're looking at more young people dying, being shot at. So clearly the world is not doing so well. There is a lot that is happening, so look out for yourself, but look out for your neighbor as well. You can only be kind with these times that are happening right now. Sure. Well, we're going in for a break, but when we get back, we'll be talking more about chances that you may leave sugar out of your diet. Okay, so if you're that person that is really obsessed about sugar, it could be time that you give it a commercial break. We'll be getting into that conversation in depth, but of course, there is one thing we cannot fail to remind you about every single morning, because we love you so much and we truly care about you. And I know Robert here is the man to spread that gospel.
Sharing is caring, and every morning I come to you with these 2 darlings, reminding you that we need you alive, because that is the only way you can be productive, but also keep with us on TV. So hallelujah, Jinga tea, hallelujah, tamarind drink. These will boost your immune system. They're not treatment, but they just empower your body to fight off a number of diseases. So why not take that route rather than spending so much on medical bills? You can save that. Maybe to buy sugar at a very high price.
Well, I would very much want to know if there is sugar in there, but well, that's a discussion for another day. We'll be back after this. Remember, we are streaming live, so you can catch up with us, and let's do this all the way until 9 a.m. Good Morning Uganda returns right after this break.
Uganda.
July 2022. Good morning, Uganda. It's a beautiful Monday over here. We're coming to you live from our very beautiful studios right here at Nile Avenue. Well, you can always feel free to pass by and pay us a visit and probably grab a cup of coffee. You know, it wouldn't hurt. My name is...
Simply deposit 20K or more on your mobile money for a chance to win 3 Toyota Succeeds and money to 2,000 lucky winners every week. We're giving away 24 cars and over 2 billion shillings of mobile money.
Football packages, great entertainment,
sports, the local content, telenovela, the movies.
There is something for everybody. Go TV, this is where our best stories live.
Get the best entertainment for any budget. With GoTV, you will have great entertainment for as little as 13,000 Ugandan shillings per month. GoTV, great stories, Zidiwano. GoTV Uganda, love it.
Success.
Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest party of 2022 is here! UBC West MP Kahona launches its Mbarora station on Goat Road in Mbarora City with your favorite entertainer, HT Murecha UBC West on 23rd July 2022 at Mbarora University Inn. People of Ankole, Kisoro, Kigezi, Toro, Bunyoro, Rwenzori, and all parts of Uganda. Do not miss your cocktail of fun with UBC West presenters, listeners, and supporters. Come, be part of the 2022 biggest party in the land. With top artists, comedians, cultural dancers and ODs, women cyclists in the cycling competition, sports activities, and many more from Western and Central Uganda at only 10,000 shillings. Don't miss the annual crowd puller of UBC West MP Kahona, and that is Etitimbure Reigunga. Proudly powered by Pepsi Cola, Delight Solar, and UBC.
For sponsorship and partnership, call 0700-236-415 or 0782-265-827. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Hey, it's time to play. Let's go! We're glad you came because we love to share. Let's have some fun. What should we try next? With everyone, because we love to learn together, making new friends forever. Sesame Street friends.
Enjoy more GBs for the same price on Airtel. Kirabo using to Gabane. We have increased GBs across all your favorite packs. Now, 4 GB is at 10,000 shillings and 10.5 GB at 22,500 shillings, all valid for a week. For the heavy data users, enjoy 24 GB at 50,000 shillings and 50 GB at 100,000 shillings, all valid for a month. Dial *175# or use the My Airtel app to buy these and more affordable weekly and monthly data bundles on Airtel, the smartphone network.
Getting a birth certificate is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Get a birth notification record stamped by a medical officer from a medical facility where the baby was born, or from a sub-county chief if the birth occurred in the community. 2. Go to the NIRA offices in your area and present the notification record, a copy of the Parents or Guardians National ID, and a bank payment slip of 5,000 shillings for citizens and $40 for non-citizens. 3. Apply by filing NIRA Form 3 from NIRA offices or download it from the NIRA website www.nira.go.ug. A birth certificate will then be issued to you. Birth certificates to refugees born in Uganda are free of charge. This message is brought to you by NIRA.
We also have enough air to...
It is intellectually engaging.
And you can only become a leader when there are problems.
I like that.
The same applies to Rwanda, Burundi. So what are we federating?
Whether rats from another country can be, I mean, somebody must be there to hold everybody accountable.
But at the moment, we would rather deal with what we have, make it right.
First of all, we as elites of Uganda, we have made Museveni the issue. I can tell Museveni is not the problem of Uganda. The problems of Uganda are much deeper. We can change the next 20 presidents and we'll still be this roundabout.
Deeply incisive.
The different political forces that we have in the country, we don't seem to really have achieved that minimum political consensus over certain things.
Authentically symbolic and insightful. Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odongto. All on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Three minutes after 7 a.m. over here on Good Morning Uganda. Thank you for joining us for this very specific segment. That is the newsreel. I am Philomena Mastiko. And I am with the men themselves, of course, Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono, and Felix Nkunda. We're here to talk about sugar consumption in Uganda, when it comes to production. And sadly, when you have conversations talking about sugar, they're usually never positive. Okay. Now, for my people out there who are obsessed about sugar, in whatever format that you consume it, or if it's a necessity for you, or if it's just a want that is not a given, definitely this is a conversation that you ought not to miss. Now, of course, before we get into all that, I would just really love to find out from Robert here and Felix, how often do you consume sugar, Robert?
Daily.
On a daily basis?
On a daily basis, I take sugar daily.
That was quick for Robert. Really,
it must be
a sweet tooth.
It's the truth. He's a man of a sweet tooth. Felix, how often do you consume sugar?
Rarely. I'll be honest.
Yes.
I'll be very honest. And I think for me it's because I try to do a lot of healthy living, so I try to avoid sugar many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, right now, we have a kilo of sugar that is going between 4,000 and 4,500 Uganda shillings. Now, I am telling you this because in a few months now, reports have actually shown that the prices could really go high. Considering that we already have the commodity prices going up for other commodities, we hadn't seen sugar prices shoot really very fast. Now, what is happening is that the companies, the major companies that we have, or the factories we have in Uganda here that do process sugar, are no longer doing that at their maximum capacity. Why? Because we are looking at a reduction in the provision of the raw canes for these machines. Now, sugar can be processed in all formats, okay? It could be the hard sugar, it could be processed sugar, it could be sugar that we even export. So there is a whole lot of use of sugar, much as some people would totally disagree with that. But when we are seeing that companies are now reducing, companies that have been operating at about crushing raw cane at about 90%, we are seeing that the reduction is all the way back to like 60% for some, and others are reducing all the way till like about 70%. Now, this shows you that there is a big gap between the sugar that will be produced, the tons, Ideally, the target market for Uganda, we're supposed to be producing about 20,000 tons of sugar, but right now where we're standing, it's about 16,000. Now, maybe just to pick from you, Robert, why are we looking at this? What would be the main problem of why we're seeing the reduction of the raw materials right from the source? Because clearly, if we don't have enough, we are not going to be able to produce enough.
And actually, we are heading for disaster because when you look at our estimated capacity, every year we produce about 822 metric tons of sugar.
Yes. And
out of this, you'll find that 720 metric tons, that is brown sugar. And then when you look at the 60,000, that is industrial sugar. Now, what does this mean? That we have a market to supply.
Yes.
And today, when the key sugarcane factories, that is Kakira, Chinyara, and Lugazi come out and say they cannot produce to their original capacity because of scarcity of sugarcane. Now, this may seem a simple problem. One will say we know Busoga region for growing sugarcane. Some were attributing it to the change in weather. But when you analyze this problem better, actually, weather could have had an impact, but very little. What is happening that when technical people speak and then you have politicians speak, this is where I find a problem. I want to take Ugandans back to 2018, 2019, when you had the Sugarcane Act in Parliament. Even around early 2020, because the president signed it, that is in April 2020. Now, the president had proposed, because for him he talks with the experts, technical staff, and had told people that in this bill, because he first sent it back to Parliament, he had proposed for what we call zoning. Now, what is happening today is that previously, these pioneer sugarcane companies had agreements with outgrowers. Outgrowers are people that grow this cane. Now, what happened is, this law that was signed, previously the president had suggested about 3 areas. He said, 1, let's have zoning. Zoning in which way? That in a radius of 25 kilometers, we do not have another sugar mill. You know?
Yes.
So there is 25 kilometers from one sugar mill to the other. He had also proposed that the sugar cane grown by outgrowers is only sold to those mills within that locality.
Yes.
He had also advised that a person to grow sugarcane should have more than 6 acres of land that you plant sugarcane. Now, this politician said, well, it was disturbing, you know, it was monopoly. Now what is happening today is this, why we are seeing this scarcity. That now outgrowers can sell to anybody. You have these traditional or pioneer companies that had what we call nuclear gardens, that they have their own gardens of sugarcane or plantations, but they also have outgrowers whom they give seeds, they give fertilizers, and it's a contract that you are buying your sugarcanes. Now, to some extent, these had kept people in a bit of, some say in poverty because they would determine the prices and all that. Now, when this law let the outgrowers do what they want, you'll find that people are picking sugarcane from Busoga as far as Ruwero, as far as Buikwe. For example, there's a factory called GM and Mayuge Sugar Works. They don't have nuclear gardens. They are competing for the same sugar cane that these traditional factories were getting. Now also the issue of small mills, because that radius was not respected. You have a company here, a factory here, you have another in a small radius.
Yes.
So what is happening? The growers here now have the right to sell to anybody. Remember, these produce on small scales. Then the worst is we have jaggeries and also people that are using sugar canes now for waraji. Previously, waraji drillers weren't using sugar cane, they use, I think, bananas and other things. Now there is so much demand for sugarcane than what was there, which the president wanted to regulate. That we know one factory from the other, there is a big distance. So the sugar cane grown within that area But now if you have people coming from Mwere, people coming from Buyikwe to take sugarcane, there's so much competition, it's becoming very expensive. Yet traditionally, we know one area that grows sugarcane is Busoga. So this is what is causing this. You could talk about the rains, but the truth is these are the many factors that there's so much competition for this sugarcane. Traditional companies had their cost of production, that they knew we buy sugarcane at this level. So right now they are stressed. They don't have enough sugarcane because Kirabo or Wawaraji will come and buy. Jagare, they will come and buy. Anyone can now buy, contrary to what was there before. Though for me, I call it a sweet pain because the farmers are now benefiting better in terms, but remember the cost will come to us, the final consumer.
Okay. Well, maybe also to hear from you, Felix. According to a report that was released by World Bank as of February 2022, actually it was Bank of Uganda, not World Bank, sugar exports increased by 43%, growing to about 21,541 tons, up from 12,203 tons in January. Now, we know that Uganda exports sugar to Kenya and some other countries, but also we know that we need it here for our local consumptions, and it's used in several companies, and I mean especially confectionery when it comes to, you know, these products. So as looking at a drop in the number or the amount of sugar that is being produced by the factories have in Uganda, it has quite an impact. So what is the worst that we are looking at right now?
Well, for me, I would rather look at it in a dimension of the entire economy. That, and this is for me the question, that when we're having the argument of sugar or the market being staggering, are you questioning its availability for local consumption or its availability for exportation? Later on, it will trickle back into how it contributes to holding tight the economy, which is quite having challenges. Now, for any product in Uganda that is consumed, in fact, I shouldn't even say daily, probably minutely, secondly, hourly. It means that it contributes greatly back into the running, the chain of the economy. And for me, that's where the problem should be, away from even focusing on the other aspects around it. That it's one of those goods that is an hourly consumable, like at every point there's someone consuming it or purchasing it. Later on also that means that there's someone who is selling it for that matter. So for me that worries me, that's because it forms a greater part of the economic chain in Uganda. But also, as a matter of policy, from what Robert was talking about, you must look at it in an angle that, is it something government can entirely control? You see, control is one of those things that you must appreciate when you have ultimate charge. I can bring this closer when I say, like, you can't make law where you cannot control. You get it? Now, it's one thing for government to put a law into place. It's another thing for the law to be appreciated or to be implemented, yet government has no direct control. For example, it's a good thing, as Robert broke it down, that government had proposed that we have all these radiuses cut off, we have a particular people selling to particular, all these kind of things. But the question is, because of the kind of economy we appreciate as a country, how applicable is this? Will it be turned into a good law that is implementable? Over time, we have seen this kind of challenge cross over from other sectors. I can give you an example. When you look at sugar, we have had that challenge even in oil.
Yes.
Oil, I think at some time back, where we even had challenges in soap and all, I think a couple of years ago. That how you solve such challenges is beyond just the law. Do we have empowerment policies that come with these laws? Okay, these companies are crying foul play, but the farmer is benefiting. So it means there's lack of a leverage in influencing policy in this particular sector. But then who should benefit more? That's the question. We have three players here. We have the farmers, we have the manufacturers, but we also have the consumers.
Yes.
But when you talk about the consumers, you also have people who sell, the retailers and all these kind of things. So where do we put our focus on? When farmers are getting and the industrial personalities or institutions are not earning like they should earn, should that be a problem? Because we are going now to gauge on where is the major benefit to Uganda, later on the government. So where are we taxing more, if you want to look at it in an economic sense?
So are we safe to say that the certain policies that government has put in place do not favor everybody in the chain?
Absolutely.
Production
Probably,
chain?
yeah, they didn't have a wide appreciation of this, because if who's paying, like who's buttering the bread more? Is it the industrial institutions? Is it the farmers? Or is it the consumers?
Yes.
Because once we understand that, it will be very easy to help us understand where we can put the effort. When people are consuming more sugar, does the government get more? When the industries are having good production, do they get more? Or when the farmers? So once we're able to answer that kind of question, we'll be able to know who to press and who not to press.
So government cannot take the entire blame. But
Absolutely.
even everybody in the production
chain,
has a fair share of blame to take.
But also we must look at one thing. You know, it takes 18 months for cane to mature. And the Busoga region, I'm not being sarcastic, but there's always been this talk of, because of the monopoly that was there previously, that farmers are not benefiting from cane. There had been regulations. These people will tell you, we are giving you fertilizers, we are giving you seedlings, we are dictating price, and that is why they were saying that people are in absolute poverty. Now, government deliberately, I don't know if they never saw this coming, went on a campaign of telling people to to look for alternatives, you get it, that grow faster and you get much more money. A person comes at your plantation, takes a whole fuso or a whole ton, then someone is given 100,000. Yet someone could grow sweet potatoes, shorter time, better monies. Someone maybe makes shorter time. So over a time, there have been that deliberate effort to tell them to kind of look for alternatives in profit. And the people of Busoga have listened to this. So you find that number of sugarcane gardens, because of the monopoly, where factories, where Felix rightly said, who should we look at? Where factories, because of the monopoly. And that's why you had MPs from Busoga, even the growers, when the president proposed these moves, they were very much against them. So now what is happening is those big factories that were there, I think they either overlooked at profits. And now when newcomers came on board, they were giving better deals, but also because of how they had over a time treated the outgrowers. Some had pushed out of business, saying, no, I'd rather grow my sweet potatoes, I'd rather grow my maize. So now they want to have the same people back into the business. But the same people are not loyal to them. Because a person who is going to, I think a jerrycan of Varajo goes for 400,000. Now this person is going to give you a better deal, take less, but more money. This one of sugar wants so much, give you less money. Then also the new millers that are coming in, making sugar, though they are getting at small levels, for them, they will pay better. So for me, I say the farmer is benefiting, but a very big and important question Felix asked. Where should we give our royalty? A farmer may sell to this brewer, who will even do whatever they are deep in the forest, I think somewhere. They are not taxed at all.
Yeah, that's true.
These other small mills could be taxed. Now this jaggery also. So how do you tax a farmer? That atunze bikajobyo bring revenue. You don't. You can only tax, I think, at factory price.
At industrial level.
At industrial level.
And of course at consumption. But which is more or less indirect. But also maybe just, Philo, just to chip in, when you look at this whole challenge or scourge of sugar, it's quite a progressive challenge that it is going to affect employment. Because between you and me, and for the people who have come from the region of Busoga, you know that one of the most employing industries there is the sugar, if not the only or the most.
Taking the biggest share of
it must be. Yeah, it must. So that means that it must be the biggest employee bench for the people in that region. Now, when you're talking about reduction in production, absolutely it's going to get back to the point that people are going to lose jobs, you know, and this cuts across even.
The layperson is going to be the biggest victim of all this.
I think this should worry us in that context. But on a higher or probably on a medical
point of view,
point
yes.
of view, we should be able to put alternatives. I don't know if there are any alternatives Uganda has apart from honey.
Well, you may as well go sugarless or do honey.
Do honey, but this should be a good opportunity now for the other sectors to also take their fair share at the table. Like the people who are in honey production, this is the best time for you now to also come and show value for what you do, because as an alternative. And the truth of the matter is that honey is cheaper than sugar. And also more healthier than sugar. So the people in that sector, be it government, be it private, I think this is the point where now you must also just be able to jump on the train.
Felix, aren't we also looking at a situation where if we know that sugar prices are high and they can be affordable to everybody, we're looking at alternatives, and we're looking at a situation where prices of, say, honey, which is for now the only alternative we know to sugar, also go shooting high.
They should, but also it talks a lot about value addition. No, don't just, if you see how people sell honey in Kampala, they have used plastic bottles of mineral water, they have, all this kind of thing. Yeah, so I think government should be able to put in all the investment authority to see how we can assist these people with the products of honey.
Yes.
In terms of value addition, I've been to, personally, I use honey, I don't use sugar. But I've seen in the stalls, supermarket stalls, I've seen lots of honey from Arabic countries, the US.
Yes.
You can imagine. And then I think it's just about the packaging, and as I said, value addition.
Yes.
This is the point where a government or any institution that is quite directly involved in assisting these producers to see how we can position the other alternatives to sugar so they can also take off.
Well, just in case you joined in, we are looking at the overview of the sugar market in Uganda, seeing that there is quite a reduction in the production of sugar, especially coming in from out of factories. And that definitely in its own way has a very big problem or a very big impact. Could be positive, could be negative, depending on how it works for you. Now that we've established the cause and also where the loopholes are exactly in this whole chain, maybe to just pick from you, Robert, what do you think would be the ideal thing? Earlier on, Felix talked about government not having full control. Yes, the regulation definitely could be there, could come up with policies, but these policies don't do a full cover-up of everybody on the chain. Do you think that if government had that power to do that, to regulate each and everybody, would that be the ideal solution to problems like this? We wouldn't even be having these discussions right about now.
It is very evident that government had tried through the law.
Yes.
But didn't get success. Like the 3 areas I told the president proposed, that within a radius of 25 kilometers, there should be no new sugar mill apart from the original. So that would mean sugar mills would have a very huge distance. And you wouldn't compete for these farmers. Where you're far, you also have your own. Also, people had to be loyal that you sell sugarcane to a mill only within your locality. Those were government plans of coming out and regulating. But it didn't see the light of day.
Yes.
Now it is a free economy. I have my sugarcane, I can decide who to sell my sugarcane.
Yes.
But looking at solutions, one, the big giants in the sugar industry, I want to mention their names, because now they are struggling with the newcomers.
Yes, who have come with a lot of energy.
Yes,
they really
the
want
big
to push
boys
them out of
the newcomers are taking on the big boys. They're offering better deals, So I think this is the time they should also tone down. Change is part of,
Makes it sound so easy.
Because
you want to meet them halfway.
They had their old policies of doing things.
Yes.
For us, we give you this, we dictate this, but now you can no longer. So these newcomers, how do you make some adjustments? Yes, it has an impact on your profits, because business is all about maximizing profits and you look at your cost of production. Then second, I think government should come in and now give incentives to those farmers, so that their cost of producing cane to maturity levels for these companies to buy, for these factories to buy this cane, is reduced. Because a farmer will look at the cost of production. Today, our soils in agriculture Many of us, without fertilizers, you don't have business. Felix will testify to that. I know he does some farming. The soils have either aged or we've used out. So today fertilizers are very expensive, Philo.
Yes.
You know, people are spending millions on fertilizers. So if government offers these incentives and they have more in production, but also they reduce their cost of production, it could be reflected on how much these are buying this cane at the end of the day.
Yes.
Give them loans. Because some of the things that farmers need, if they have loans, agricultural loans, I must be very clear, that means with a very low interest rate, that will mean that even their cost of selling this cane will reduce. But also, Felix hinted on a very big issue here. We must have some bit of regulation. Some of the people that are buying off this sugar, or this cane, and denying the big companies are in illegal business. Waraj. There is no tax that is being taxed from these people.
Yes.
They're employing a few people. They do this in forests.
So they're making unrealistic profits.
They're unrealistic and denying where we get revenue.
Yes.
What is the use of waraj? Apart from sanitizing.
Really, Robert?
No, I mean making people drunk.
That's a very unfair statement.
Apart from a source of income to people.
Yes.
But Felix, do you know in every village in Uganda, there are about 10 youth that have been spoiled completely because of
So
waraj.
are you suggesting that we
And
do
even,
away with the waraj?
and even when we look at our colonial masters, we had the Inguliro. Some of these things today, drunkenness is killing a whole generation. Now, big factories are suffering because someone is earning from waraj. That is detrimental and disrupting development.
Maybe to hear from you, Felix. Of course, I know you have something to say in that regard, but also, how would we have to save, how do we bail the final consumer out of this? Because when you look at the whole chain, if there is anybody benefiting, there are probably other people, but not the final consumer. The person who is going to walk to the shop and buy that kilogram of sugar, you're the one who is feeling, the real price. So how do we save that? How do we save the ordinary man from a situation like that? Of course, as you're saying something in regard to what Robert.
Well, I will rejoin that, Robert, as I close. But for me, I think government must first and foremost come out to explain some of these things. I think most recently, I've not heard a lot from government. You see, explanations do not mean that government is weak or it's losing.
Yes.
It's basically PR that helps people understand the situation and prepares them for what is coming. We may talk about it here as Good Morning Uganda, but it's not enough. Government should be able to come out and inform people what to be prepared for. Now, also in the midst of the same, there must be some policy on how to regulate this law. Away from, you see, the law is the law. The law is as good as it's implementable. It's never a good law because of the niceties, because of the linguistics, because it's never a good law. It's about how it can be turned into sensible implementation to whatever sector it must be related to. So if the law is there, how do we use that law, the purpose, to fit the purpose it was probably invented for? But lastly, let me just say this also. I think we are into a point where we must cause health or biological assessment on the effect and benefits of some of the products. And not only sugar, we're looking at oil, we are looking at junk food. Elsewhere, other countries have done it. You find that in some countries, the purchase of things that have health threats to people are very expensive.
Yes.
And they're not readily available. Robert has given us an example of alcohol. Now, how available are some of, this what he calls waraj or crude, or alcohol for that matter, it's a challenge to the sector, but it's a threat to a generation or to a country's productivity. So these are things that we must address without fear or favor. But also, not to take it general. There are people who do what Robert is against, and are quite fine, and have done tremendous work. So we don't want to make it look like we are attacking the people who are
consuming.
Well,
yeah.
I must say,
you go to a burial and a waragi take up making a noise at a funeral, every village.
Clearly, Robert has probably seen the bad
anyway,
side.
So.
He's probably seen the bad side of all this. But
there's only one side of alcohol. The bad side. There's no good side.
Okay, the worst side. If we are taking it to that level. Well, that's it from this morning's discussion. But what I actually pick is that this could look good for people who are really very enthusiastic about health, but it will definitely look so bad for the business-oriented people. Sure. So at the end of the day, somehow, you will feel the impact whether you consume it or not. So you probably should start looking for an alternative. But also as a country, this could really be very detrimental, seeing that it is one of the exports we have for Ugandan economy, where we, export to other countries. So we are yet to see how this goes. Of course, looking at the big picture and focusing on the long run. Well, we'll be getting into the press review, looking at what made the big headlines in our papers and our dailies, looking at the New Vision, the Daily Monitor, and of course, over there in Kenya, things are really getting heated up. All these stories coming up in the Daily Nation as well. So make sure you don't miss that segment as well. We'll be back. Good morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Success.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone and enjoy free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 Uganda shillings. That's free 2 GB for the first month and free 1 GB for the next 11 months at only 250,000 Uganda shillings with free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 shillings only. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Getting a birth certificate is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Get a birth notification record stamped by a medical officer from a medical facility where the baby was born, or from a sub-county chief if the birth occurred in the community. 2. Go to the NERA offices in your area and present the notification record, a copy of the parents' or guardian's national ID, and a bank payment slip of 5,000 shillings for citizens and $40 for non-citizens. 3. Apply by filing NERA Form 3 from NERA offices or download it from the NERA website www.nera.go.ug. A birth certificate will then be issued to you. Birth certificates to refugees born in Uganda are free of charge. This message is brought to you by NERA.
Football packages, great entertainment, sports, the local content, telenovela, the movies. There is something for everybody. Go TV, this is where great stories live.
Get the best entertainment for any budget. With GoTV, you will have great entertainment for as little as 13,000 Uganda shillings per month. GoTV, great stories, Zidiwano. GoTV Uganda, love it.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
The press review, kick-starting it with the Daily Monitor. The big story, UPDF top brass to get huge pay rise. Now we're looking at the plan, which will see a 4-star general earning at about 15 million Ugandan shillings. This is up from 1.6 million Ugandan shillings. Will only benefit officers, of course, from the rank of major and above, and leaving the bulk of the file with major pay. So this is a story that you really need to acquaint yourself with, and you can catch it on pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor this morning. Well, still in more news, we'll look at Bank of Uganda, Chinese embassy inject about 114 million Uganda shillings into NMG farm clinics. Still in more stories, we're looking at world population to hit 8 billion this year. Well, I must say people are really very busy this year, and the population clearly shows you that. The statistics also affirm the story. Weekend accidents kill at least 11 people. Just in a span of 2 days, we're losing 11 lives. Healthy living, why testing for HIV is important. If you have always given it, doubts, maybe this can help you know why you need to go for that test. And we'll look at a very exclusive interview about the Sudan opposition leader who was Museveni to come in and save the country. Another story that you ought to read this morning. But also the New Vision, I know, has quite some interesting text. What are we looking at this morning?
In the New Vision, leading off with the top NRM officials conned of shillings 300 million in a visa scam. Well, that is also very detailed on page 3 of the New Vision. Now, the New Vision also leads off with a big story right there. Rare minerals worth trillions found in Busoga. Estimated total value more than Uganda's crude oil. That's interesting, very much detailed right there on page 5 of the New Vision. But also in the New Vision, 10,000 Kiswahili teachers are ready. Well, as we look at making the language compulsory, that is on page 12 of the New Vision. And in the side of health, districts with most fertile women have been named.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That is on page 7 of the New Vision for this morning. You can get yourself details of that. Museveni rallies ABSA on the growth. That is also on page 4. But also they give you a big picture right there of Tororo girls tour as that is across Kawumu presidential farm. And, right there holding coffee and all that, interesting, but details are on page 14. But also across Chivale, pay absentees landlords, Nabanja orders. That is on page 15 of the New Vision. But on the second page, they give you details of what is in the parish development model. And of course, those charging fees to be arrested. Well, it looks like most parish chiefs are also failing when PDM face acts. And that is also detailed on the second page. But also opportunities right there of 125,000 Irish potato farmers to benefit from shillings 5.6 billion GIZ projects. That is also right there in the New Vision for you. Today in history, President Amini visits Israel. That was back in 1971. And also back in 1999, Mubarak in a comeback. That is the Egyptian president right there for you.
Well, in the Daily Monitor Sports, of course, this morning we're looking at Uganda targeting ICC T20 World Cup tickets. And they're giving you the full detail and seeing the 2 finalists who qualified. And at Wimbledon, it's really getting hotter and hotter. We're looking at where this one, a very specific lady, that is Rybakina, who does not celebrate. And of course, she did not know to celebrate as Novak Djokovic wins 7th title. Now, this is a question of whether you'd celebrate for the other partner or you just let it go. Nabada makes strong WAFCON refereeing debut. We're looking at the Women's African Cup of Nations. And I must say that Uganda is there. They're trying to prove a point. So this is also a story you need to catch in the Daily Monitor Sports this morning.
Well, and crossing over to the New Vision Sports, all eyes on the month of August. Well, talking about the Ndeje University Sports Facility upgrade nearly completed. And of course, that is following the presidential pledge with this facility. How far it has gone, but also looking forward to the East and Africa University Games. That is Fondeje 2022, December. That will be in December 16th to 21st. That is right there for you. But also, it's a Duada Day. Looking at motorsport right there, Duada's car in action as, he prepares for that Larry. Of course, getting 90 points for his Fort Portal City Larry win. I also give you a picture right there of him as the winner with his navigator Hamza Ranga standing across him right there. But also inside the New Vision Sport, Ludo's boss cries out. Of course, giving you more details as you head into the second page of the New Vision Sport right there. Team Uganda in safe hands, talking about, of course, what is in the package as you look at Uganda's games right there, but also more within the Games Association of Uganda, the Commonwealth. That is.
Well, in the Daily Nation, we look at the roots of Wajakoya and very, very critical. The man, his eccentricities and contradictions. A story that you could really pick up from a man who is considered to be a joker in the pack with a shadowy past in the special branch and the platform of narcotics and the export of hyena testicles and a dress code that includes a durag. His manifesto is really full of unreasoned policy proposals and crazy populism. And even the 3-bedroom state house he's building back home stands as a monument to his rich list of contradiction. Pages 2 and 3 will give you this manifesto. I must say that during this campaigning season, the Kenyans will not at least be bored. This one is here definitely to entertain.
Obviously,
yes,
that brings in a lot.
The State Lodge of Matungu, there is even a picture over there to show you what he pictures in his head, and he has definitely brought it to reality. Still in more news in the Daily Nation, Azimio Uhuru adopts low-key role in Raila campaign. And still, Kenya Mwanza, Ruto dismisses Raila demands to IEBC, a conversation that has actually been going on and dividing Kenyans. So we are yet to see what happens just in a couple of days. And now also parents are exerting more pressure, or, actually more pressure is being exerted on the parents as schools reopen for new term. Again, these problems are definitely global. It's not only our Ugandan parents that worry too much when schools are reopening for new terms. It's a story Kenyans also have to tell. So make sure you grab yourself the Daily Nation to catch up on all these stories and many, many more. But also one thing you can't afford to miss are the traffic updates this morning. And you're coming in from areas of Hoima Road, Chadondo Road, Sa Apollo Kagwa. These are the areas I am looking at, and I'm going to draw your attention to Makerere Hill Road. And I mentioned these areas because it's not looking rosy this morning. Matter of fact, the traffic on most parts of these roads is actually very crazy and very heavy. So if these have been your daily routes, well, ma'am or sir, you probably need to look into changing the route this morning. That is, of course, if you have not yet set off. If you're already caught in it, well, there is a certain kind of patience you're going to have to, display this morning. But starting off with Balintuma Road. Balintuma Road is actually very free this morning. However, it shouldn't really give you hope, because as you're headed towards the main road over here, which is definitely Hoima Road, I could say that you would have to tell a different story. The red spots on this road clearly show you that the traffic is very heavy, and by the way, it progresses from being heavy to becoming heavier, as shown by this maroon dot over here. Now, this area is quite very busy this morning. Could be by very many pedestrians, could be by the many cars, public transport and private means of transport as well, cyclists. So you need to be very careful around this area, and also exercise some patience as, of course, you're headed towards town. Now, the traffic goes on all the way along quite a very long stretch over here, as shown from this area all the way till down here. However, you could decide to use Makerere Hill Road, which is also a little bit free for the smallest part, but the biggest part is actually also occupied, and it's very heavy with traffic, as portrayed by these orange lines and these red stretches over here. Now, it goes all the way, of course, as you're connecting to Wandegea, and again, when you get to Wandegea and Bombo Road, the situation does not become any different. Matter of fact, it becomes actually kind of worse. We're looking at Haji Musa Road over here, and the red stretches definitely cover up for all the areas here, and also for the people try to access the city center, or try to access the city center from this side, or even trying to leave to get to their respective destinations. So it definitely doesn't leave out anybody in this specific part of the morning. We're looking at Buganda Road. Buganda Road this morning is also not really as busy, but of course when you're looking at Nakasero Hill Road, which is definitely part of it, or that helps you join the Buganda Road, it is getting heavier. The traffic is actually starting to build up, and it makes sense because we are having very many people trying to access their places of work and trying to go up and about their businesses in town. So any minute now it could become actually heavier, so you cannot fully rely on it being the same 10 or 20 minutes from now. Now taking you all the way to Yusuf Lule Road. Yusuf Lule Road is also very busy this morning. You're looking at traffic buildups on several parts of this same road, and any minute now it could also become heavier by the day because it's quite a busy road that is accessed by very many cars and also has very many detours. However, it shouldn't be a big problem because you could always take a detour off it. But I must tell you that this morning, for the biggest part of all these areas, there is quite some heavy traffic that you intend to face. And also maybe because it's a Monday, so it shouldn't really come in as a surprise. Monday, everybody's trying to get back to work and trying to go up and about their businesses, get to town and resume, or have to complete their pending chores or errands. So please and please and please, while you're on that road, you have to realize that you're not the only road user. Do not be a selfish road user. That is what we want you, because at the end of the day, we are trying to make sure that everybody feels safe on our very own roads. We really need to cut down on the statistics showing us how many accidents we are getting every single day, and also be very, very alert. Mollen, I'll tell you, yesterday we had quite a very terrible accident that happened, I don't know if you saw it, where we had people who were actually knocked by the train around Nakawa. So you need to be very alert on the road, despite the time of the day or night you're using the road. Be alert, anything can happen. We don't really want to keep losing young people every now and then.
A great message right there, because in these times it's really important that you take care of yourself before anyone else looks out for you. Well, we'll go ahead and also take a look into the weather for today, and of course we'll be starting off from the story that we covered this morning across Portugal, where we've had record-breaking numbers in terms of temperatures. Of course, that has prompted a heat wave across most areas within Portugal, where so far we've seen thousands of firefighters being deployed, and of course more than 60 fleets of aircrafts to battle these wildfires. And of course the EU also did give a statement on its support program. That means that the EU will be coming in to also add on more fleets in terms of aircrafts to fight the fires. Now, for the first time, they're seeing such an extent of wildfires, but that is as temperatures are moving now to 40 degrees Celsius for this time of the year. But also the forecast does indicate that this week we might still be in the higher 40s in mostly the central and northern parts of Portugal. And of course that is also comes in as dozens have also been injured during this intense heat wave. And of course most of those, we have seen numbers ranging from the firefighters themselves, the civilians around the area, and of course as people are enduring the heat wave, also those trying to vacate from dangerous places. Obviously that's where the danger does come through. And of course the heat, the drought and wildfires obviously have also been linked to some of the extreme weather events that are coming in as we look into climate variations raging across the world. Now, it's not just one area, but we continue to see most reports of wildfires and of course heat waves crossing over. That is for most areas within the world. And of course California has been most hit recently, also reporting more of the heat waves expected across the area. And of course what did come through even from yesterday and from the wildfires that actually also started off over the weekend, parts of California will be dealing with most of these wildfires. And of course the forecast does indicate that they could be having more of these temperatures go up. Now, the officials and the FBI across California are targeting illegal drones that are also been emerging over the area. Now, obviously, the state, the country fire departments and the Federal Bureau of Investigations across Los Angeles, they have also been working together to make sure they have a program to stop these wildfires. But again, also reports that are coming through is that the aircrafts and helicopters that are dropping water and fire detergents are also most of those that are state deployed, but as well there has been unauthorized drone flies that now the FBI has come in to investigate. But of course the latest are also indicative of the climate crisis cutting across the area. And of course, those are some of the images coming through from the California wildfires. Now, it looks like there is a lot just of extreme weather events right across everywhere in the world. And of course, across Pakistan, we did see more of the flooding coming through, and we have been reporting about the Pakistan floods for quite a while now, but it looks like due to the continuous monsoon rains, these are continuing to lash out across most areas within the country. Now, so far, we do know that intense floods have killed dozens of people and left hundreds homeless in Pakistan. That is according to the report that came out on Saturday from the country officials. And of course, mostly the southern province of Pakistan has been affected. And that is looking at more of the areas, according to the officials, saying that the disaster and home affairs advisors are saying that 8 dams have also burst their banks, and meaning that that has also contributed to the heavy rains that are coming through over the area. And of course, that prompts more flooding as hundreds more are still, fleeing their homes to get safer places. And of course, these are some of the extreme weather events that have come through as we look at more of the monsoon seasons that keep coming. Now, as if that's not enough, just to the neighboring areas of India, there was also more of the bad news coming through, as 16 people have died due to the flash floods that is in Kashmir across parts of India. Now, this was also later due to the sudden rains that triggered flash floods during the annual Hindu pilgrimage. Now, this pilgrimage was to the cave shrines of Amarnath, that is across the Indian parts of Kashmir. Now, government officials are saying that these rains were sudden, and of course, because of their intensity, they were able to trigger this kind of flash flooding that left 16 people dead, and more than 2 dozen people have been reported missing. Of course, that is across the caves, and most of the army and civilian helicopters that are over the area are still, carrying out search and rescue to ascertain if there are more people still that are missing or under some of the debris that came in as the floods were cutting over the caves. And of course, still looking into what the military is on ground, searching for more of the rescue and of course recovery for some of the people that are found, still alive. But we do know that most of these were actually attributed to the rains over the area. And of course, India has also been dealing with a lot of extreme weather events this year alone. Not to mention that they have also been affected by the monsoon rains that also come through as we start the month of June throughout up to September. This is the period that Pakistan and India are always dealing with most of these monsoon rains, and of course that is associated with the flooding that comes through, and of course that prompts death and destruction across several places. Well, also back into the East African region, we have seen mostly reports of drought crisis, and one of the areas that have been worst hit, we look at Somalia, where the reports that are coming through for just this first quarter, or the first half of the year, that is up to June, indicates that 1.5 million children are under the age of 5 are facing acute malnutrition. That is across Somalia. And of course, that is due to the drought crisis that has been faced over the area. Now, the areas that are highlighted in orange colors there, if you can see it in the images, of course, those are the areas that are highlighting most people that have been affected by the flood, by the drought crisis. And of course, you can see mostly part of Somalia, almost the entire part of Somalia dealing with this drought crisis. That is for this year. And of course, going into phases of how most people have come out to help. Of course, we know most of UN organizations have been on ground to help out. However, this is a continuous thing. And of course, we have seen year to year drought crisis across East Africa, the greater horn of East Africa. Not to mention that even here in Uganda, mostly the Kirabo region, parts of northern Uganda, have also been affected by most of these drought crises. But now what is going beyond record is at least the one that is being reported across Somalia. And of course, even the reports that are coming through from, of course, the East African Climate Prediction Center, that is ICPAC, and of course, together with also some of the meteorological organizations over there, indicative that we could have subsiding rains for this time of the year. So meaning that the drought crisis might actually be continuing across the area. And of course, what is still needed is more of, the help that should come through. Otherwise, the rains have been missing for quite a while. And of course, when you look at this time of the year, it's a dry season for most areas within the greater horn of Africa. And Somalia is no different. So at least they are expecting that mostly as we head into the September to December, second major rainy season across East Africa, maybe that's when we get some relief from this whole crisis. But otherwise, this could be a catastrophe that goes on, and of course that threatens food insecurity across most of these areas. Well, we want to come back home here and take a look at the weather that is happening across the country. And of course, we'll be tapping in from our satellites, that is over Uganda, taking a look at what is happening over Uganda this morning. I'll tell you one thing, it looks like we're starting off with quite some pleasant weather, mix of clouds and sunshine. And of course, there are going to be rains, but that will be later in the day. But for now, you can enjoy mostly a mix of clouds and sun. We do have that rainy system that is starting to develop across the western side of Uganda, that is towards Congo. But looks like that is also propagating westwards, so it might not bring much rains, especially towards the side of Uganda. But we're still seeing mostly cloudy conditions developing across the West Nile, parts of northern Uganda, that is across Gulu, but also looking into southwestern Uganda where we have Mbarara, parts of Fort Portal right there, also developing a few of those clouds. Now hopefully those will be bringing in rains later as the morning progresses. But looks like it's quite also a sunny day across mostly the Choga region, extending all the way up to the Karamoja region. We're seeing a little bit of clouds also developing across the Mount Elgon Highlands. That could be bringing in rains later as the day progresses. But again, back here in the central part of Uganda and of course the Lake Victoria Basin, we're seeing just mostly sunny skies. We do have a few of the clouds that are starting to develop, and most of those will be developing into rainy conditions later as the morning progresses. But let's go ahead and take a look into the forecast that is of course coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority, and also tapping to those temperatures that are expected for your morning across different areas within the country. We will start it off with the western part of Lake Victoria. That is where we have Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe and Rakai. We are forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine, starting off with quite a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade. Now across southwestern Uganda, we're expecting to have a mix of clouds and sunshine as well, starting off with a chilly morning at 25. We do expect some of the rains to kick in later as we head towards evening, but for now you can deal with mostly, at least in terms of sunny cloudy conditions. Now looking at Mount Elgon Highlands, we are forecasting isolated showers that will be across several places within that area, starting off with quite a cool 24 degrees centigrade, and most of those systems will be clearing as we head into the afternoon. That is clearing up for intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Now across the eastern part of Lake Victoria, that is where we have Tororo, Busia, Iganga and Jinja. We're forecasting light showers as well. Those will be coming in as the morning progresses, starting off with a beautiful 26 degrees centigrade. Quite normal temperatures for this time of the year across the eastern part of Lake Victoria. Now eastern Uganda, that is where we have Soroti, Katakwi, Amuria and Kumi. We're forecasting isolated showers that will be starting off with a chilly 25 degrees centigrade. Also, we do expect some of those systems to redevelop later in the afternoon. We could be having more rains across that area later as we head into evening. Now the eastern part of central, that is where we have Ruwero, Woblenzi, Bururi, Nakaseke. We're forecasting isolated showers starting off with a warm 27 degrees. Across the central part of northern Uganda, Gulu, Kitgum, Padel and Ajumani, we're forecasting light showers starting off at 25. We already have those clouds that are developing over the area. Those will be bringing in some rain, starting off with a cool 25 degrees. And back to the central part of Lake Victoria Basin, that is where we have Wakiso, Entebbe, Kampala And of course, parts of Mukono, we're forecasting those showers again. They will be coming in as isolated showers, starting off at a cool 24 degrees centigrade. Some of those systems will be crossing over into the afternoon. Well, generally it looks like we're starting off with quite some pleasant weather, but most of those rains that do develop will be mostly in the afternoon, and of course looking out for more rains coming through, that is across the western stretch of Uganda. Well, that is it in terms of weather and nature. Of course, we do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Later than that, we'll also be diving into sports updates, and later than that, we'll be having Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Mollen Kenyena. I want to wish you a blessed week.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Enjoy more GBs for the same price on Airtel. Kirabo using to Gabane. We have increased GBs across all your favorite packs. Now, 4 GB is at 10,000 shillings and 10.5 GB at 22,500 shillings, all valid for a week. For the heavy data users, enjoy 24 GB at 50,000 shillings and 50 GB at 100,000 shillings, all valid for a month. Dial *175# or use the My Airtel app to buy these and more affordable weekly and monthly data bundles on Airtel, the smartphone network.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply deposit 20K or more on your mobile money for a chance to win 3 Toyota Succeeds and money to 2,000 lucky winners every week. We're giving away 24 cars and over 2 billion shillings of mobile money.
Welcome to English in a Minute from home. If someone told you to get out of town, would you really have to go anywhere?
Anna, I know we've both always lived in apartments, but last week, I finally bought a house.
Get out of town, you didn't.
I sure did. And it's right down the street from my favorite pizza restaurant.
Oh, pizza. Maybe I should think about buying a house.
You can say, get out of town, when you're surprised or find it hard to believe something someone said. It has the same meaning as phrases like, get out of here, you're kidding, or no way. And that's English in a Minute.
Hey guys, please let's have a brief meeting. See that? Calls, data, SMS, shareable among 5 people. What? And it includes free Airtel TV. Do you guys know what that means?
Means no worries.
Enjoy life worry-free with Airtel Smart Plans. Shareable among 5 people. Use every day and pay at the end of the month.
They've also added Showmax.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest party of 2022 is here! UBC West MP Kahona launches its Mbarara station on Goat Road in Mbarara City with your favorite entertainer, Echitimbulecha UBC West on 23rd July 2022 at Mbarara University Inn. People of Ankole, Chisoro, Tigezi, Toro, Bunyoro, Rwenzori, and all parts of Uganda. Do not miss your cocktail of fun with UBC West presenters, listeners, and supporters. Come, be part of the 2022 biggest party in the land with top artists, comedians, cultural dancers and ODs, women cyclists in the cycling competition, sports activities, and many more from Western and Central Uganda at only 10,000 shillings. Don't miss the annual crowd puller of UBC West MP Kahona, and that is Etitimbure Reigunga. Proudly powered by Pepsi Cola, Delight Solar, and UBC.
For sponsorship and partnership, call 0700-236-415 or 0782-265-827. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Success.
Welcome to English in a Minute from home. If someone told you to get out of town, would you really have to go anywhere?
Anna, I know we've both always lived in apartments, but last week, I finally bought a house.
Get out of town, you didn't.
I sure did. And it's right down the street from my favorite pizza restaurant.
Oh, pizza. Maybe I should think about buying a house.
You can say, get out of town, when you're surprised or find it hard to believe something someone said. It has the same meaning as phrases like, get out of here, you're kidding, or no way. And that's English in a Minute.
Getting a birth certificate is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Get a birth notification record stamped by a medical officer from a medical facility where the baby was born, or from a sub-county chief if the birth occurred in the community. 2. Go to the nearer offices in your area and present the notification record, a copy of the parent's or guardian's national ID, and a bank payment slip of 5,000 shillings for citizens and $40 for non-citizens. 3. Apply by filing NERA Form 3 from NERA offices or download it from the NERA website www.nera.go.ug. A birth certificate will then be issued to you. Birth certificates to refugees born in Uganda are free of charge. This message is brought to you by NERA.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
It's a new week and a new beginning. You have about 5 or 7 days for you to ensure that what you were not able to accomplish the last week now are other 5 working days, though some work Monday to Monday. Thank you for being part of us on Good Morning Uganda, and welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. I'm Robert Kirabo, in case you've just joined, and in this segment we usually have a guest in studios. Now today we have a very interesting guest. why she comes from the National Curriculum Development Center. Many times we've had people talk about our syllabus, our curriculum, this and that. Well, I have the Executive Director, National Curriculum Development Center, Dr. Grace Baguma. Doctor, you're most welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much.
And really, we know you're going to be hearing more. But she's here on something still very interesting. That is the compulsory teaching and examining of Swahili language that is in our education institutions. It was last week when our Minister for Information and National Guidance, Dr. Kiswahili Language, at the Media Center communicated a cabinet decision to ensure that Kiswahili is taught in our school and it is compulsory and examinable. Now, this wasn't something for only Uganda, but through the East African community, it was an agreement. And even as far as some other countries, I was reading an article where South Africa was debating on making Swahili also one of the languages to be taught in schools. It is among the top 10 languages most spoken in the world.
Yeah.
And with Doctor, first to begin with, for my viewers to know the nature of guest I'm having, when you talk about the National Curriculum Development Center, what is your mandate? What do you do?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirabo. The mandate of the National Curriculum Development Center is to develop curricula, that is the syllabuses. What is a syllabus? A syllabus is a package of content that is packaged or arranged to be taught by school to children for the different levels except universities and some tertiary institutions. So we write curricula and package it following the age levels and all those procedures that we follow for schools. And we start with pre-primary school to primary, secondary, and some tertiary levels of education. We've been developing that, and for your information, the National Curriculum Development Center will be 50 years old next year. So our mandate is revolving around curriculum and instructional materials writing for schools.
Very interesting. Now this brings me to the new issue at hand, that is Kiswahili language. And now, Doctor, we know that we've been teaching Kiswahili in our schools, but not compulsory. It has been an option. This time around, Cabinet makes this decision, approves it, Ministry of Health has what to handle, but they're the people that come up with the content like you've told us. Now, first, why do you think this is a wise decision for our children now? Yet we have been talking about a bleached curriculum, talking about piling our students with a lot of not so relevant material given the job market today. So Swahili, an additional, one would call maybe subject or burden. People have books of this magnitude. Why do you think it's a step in the right direction?
First of all, a correction. Kiswahili is already a compulsory subject for senior 1 and 2. Children are offering Kiswahili in the new lower secondary curriculum as compulsory. The idea there was to make sure that the children get acclimatized with the language for 2 years before they can proceed to senior 3 and 4. But, so it is not new. The effort is not new. It is being re-emphasized. Yes, at primary level, we do not have optional subjects. When the subjects are packaged for primary, the children are expected to learn all the 8. It was unfortunate that Kiswahili was put on the program, on the curriculum, but at the time of rolling out in 2007, we did not have adequate teachers and instructional materials, and there were some other aspects that were not in place. And over the years, those have now been provided. We have the textbooks, we have the primary school training colleges, the PTCs have been producing teachers since 2014. So we have a buffer of about 64,000 primary teachers. And then the instructional materials, the textbooks for Swahili were also put. So the idea or the policy that guided the 1992 white paper on having Kiswahili as one of the compulsory subjects was efforts to implement it were made by government and the Ministry of Education in particular. And that's why at the primary level, Kiswahili was one of the subjects to be offered. starting from P4. And then at secondary now, the revisions made it compulsory for senior 1 and 2. And it remains, of course, optional at A level. We have it, and we have it up to universities. And indeed, Kiswahili is one of the 10 most spoken languages in the world, and therefore we cannot remain behind, especially when we are part of the East African community. And also the advantages that come with being a multilingual person. When you can speak more than one language, you have more opportunities in the UN settings, in the East African community. For example, one of the things that has been paining me over the years is to find that we in East Africa get cut off with some jobs in the UN because we can't speak French. And yet the countries where they have bilingual English and French, the opportunities are many. Just like the opportunities, I'm sure, will be many with the speaking of Kiswahili, since the world is recognizing it, and it is one of those. African Union has recognized it, and even the UN. Last week we celebrated the Kiswahili Day,
that is on 5th,
meaning
7th.
that it's a world that is a language that is on the map, and the world is looking at it as one of its top-notch languages. And when you are multilingual, I'm not saying bilingual, you have the opportunities to communicate with different languages to different communities, but to be able also to see whether you can have business ventures or activities that you can do, because you can speak the language, you can understand how transactions are done, and many other opportunities that come with languages. So, and when it comes to the East African community, and you look at it and say, oh, Uganda, we still have a connotation. We are now together with South Sudan. So Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania, Kenya, Congo, all those countries, Kiswahili is a major official language. Uganda has been saying we have it as an official language, fine. But the implementation and operationalization of it has been rather slow. And to the viewers, that does not stop you from learning, does not stop us from preparing for learning of the other Ugandan languages provided for in the Constitution. We have 66 languages in the Constitution, and we've been making efforts to make sure that they have their orthographies, their genres, their different materials, so that they can children can continue to learn them. And it is not difficult to learn more than one language.
Now, Doctor, one time, His Excellency, I think what Kolo, he used the word being everywhere but nowhere. When we look at learning in our country, today you have an official language which is English. But you go to some deep corners of this country in school, and you find children are poorly doing English. Yet you would think English teaching has been around for a long time. Almost it is compulsory, it is examinable, all our exams come in English language. They're still performing very poor. I believe we have more teachers in English, we have more material in English. Now with Swahili, aren't we biting more than what we can chew and swallow?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirabo. When we were rolling out the primary curriculum, as you know, the design changed to thematic curriculum, and then of course subject approach at the upper primary, but using of the familiar language as a medium of instruction at the beginning classes. And that had been picked from the nursery, where a familiar language was being promoted. Research had shown that when you learn in your early years with what we call the first language, in a language which you are familiar with or you understand, you can easily adapt to the second and even the third language. So the familiar language here, which we've been trying to promote, is a language which the child has spoken at their home, at the first speaking, at the first understanding, or even when it's still in the stomach, the mother, what is the mother tongue? The language the mother is speaking to this child who is yet to be born. So that language is picked even at the school level, and that is what we refer to as a familiar language, meaning that we are teaching you the different themes or areas or content that you're supposed to learn, but in a language which you have been speaking, you have been used to, you are playing with in the neighborhood and all that. So that from there, you can be able to pick. But also, at that time, the mistake we were doing in the past, and which correction the new curriculum tried to make, was to teach children in English before they could even learn the language. Because before you can start using a language comfortably, you must have not less than 500 words. And the children were coming from their homes, and straight away the teacher is teaching in English. At home I'm hearing Nkoko, at the school it is chicken. So there was that mismatch which was causing our children or our people not to understand even or to know English better. So the English kept on being divulged and diluted. That is why the emphasis is learn first in your familiar language. And I'm glad that there are some schools, a number of them in the army, in the borderlines, like Kunjiri, Mutukula and others. There are a number of schools that are using Kiswahili as a medium of instruction because that's the familiar language to the children. And they are learning it, they are using it to learn, but they are also learning English as a subject so that they can gather enough vocabulary to be able to be confident to be taught in English, but also use it by the time they reach P4.
Now let's look at preparations to roll out this. You've talked about a number of teachers, but we know that education has now come commercial. Education is more in the private sector. Do we have what it takes to, I want to use the word, effectively and meaningfully teach Kiswahili in our schools? Because at the end of the day, Kenya is a step ahead. Tanzania a step ahead in Kiswahili, and we want to produce this person that is going to compete favorably, like you said, for the job market. If it's a UN job, if it's in the East Africa, that if all are present and they're examinable, looking at how good they are in Kiswahili, a Ugandan child or student can compete favorably, not just saying, I got the basics, you know, so that we don't just pass on the surface, but have meaningful learning.
Of course, the meaningful learning is provided for in the syllabus, in what we package that the children should learn to begin with. Then, as I said, the primary teachers have been trained as generally. They learn all the subjects to come out and teach them. They're not optional. Because when a teacher comes out from a primary teacher's college, comes out to teach, can teach English, can teach mathematics, can teach social studies, can teach integrated science, Kiswahili, and of course, now we are packaging the local languages. So the teachers the 64,000 teachers who are being produced so far and have been posted in schools, and they are all over the place, primary grade 3 teachers. They have also, some of them, been upgrading to diploma. They can be able to teach this subject with comfort because the materials are also there. But remember, we have 58,800 primary schools, both government and private. And those schools can be serviced by the 64,000 teachers who have been qualified to go and teach, and one of the subjects is Kiswahili. Therefore, I don't see, and the Ugandan teachers have stood the test of time. They have been very good teachers, even up to now.
Have you heard how they speak their Kiswahili?
How they speak, how they teach. They have
in terms of spoken
they have been taught Kiswahili for 2 years in the college, and some of them have already their first language, as I said. Kiswahili is not a mountain or whatever. It has a lot of Bantu like dialects and others. Actually, we did a pilot when we were trying to prepare for the introduction of Kiswahili before 2007. And in that pilot, we were teaching teachers from a selected number of schools content which they would go to teach the following term, and they did very well. We have a research, that was an action research because it was a pilot. We have the report, and if you look at it, you'll be amazed. These were in-service teachers who had never even been trained to teach Kiswahili in the college. And we were picking them from the districts of Arua. There are about 10 districts, I can't remember all of them.
That already is speaking Kiswahili.
No, they came without knowing any word. They had never spoken Kiswahili in their lives.
Sure.
So they would learn in the holidays content and then go and teach it in the following term. Learn in the content, a short at a time. And by the time we finished the pilot, they were amazing. The results were amazing, and we have a report, you can have a look at it. They did very well. They had never spoken Kiswahili, they had never been taught. So what about these ones who have been taught for 2 years? They can teach that Kiswahili and do very well. And we have the materials. The materials, we are not even reinventing the wheel. We have our countries that are neighboring us. They have written a lot of Kiswahili books. We don't need even to scratch our heads, but also our own local publishers have written Kiswahili books. That's the ones the ministry bought for schools and distributed them to schools. So we are not starting from a clean slate. There have been very good efforts that can propel us to make it compulsory for everybody.
Well, Doctor, we know language barrier is a problem in business. But I want also us to understand, what does this mean to the child in school? Many times you are forwarding trade, employment. I want to give you an example. The first people that left Uganda to go to Dubai, abasuubuza abasoka. These were people who had not gone to school. They had made their money. They never knew English. They never knew Arabic. They never knew even the language of those people. But they went to Dubai, and now they are tycoons in this country.
But they learned the language.
People who went to China, China, they literally knew nothing about Chinese language. But they would go, they're now tycoons in this city. We've had business between Sudanese, Congolese, Tanzanians, but we've had people who will tell you where money is, communication can happen. So what does this mean to this student who already has a whole baggage of what to study? Someone was telling me, abana ba Uganda mbatike bintu bingi, that you're piling them with so much. No wonder today we are seeing some of them because of this exhaustment. Some have to start classes at 5 for you to tell me, no, our draft is classes begin at 8. Some as 10 they're in class because there's so much to cover, which many think could even be irrelevant, some of the content. So with this additional baggage, what does it mean?
I want to make it clearer that Kiswahili is not additional. It has been there. It was programmed for the primary curriculum and even now for secondary. It is not an additional baggage. And the curriculum, we have made an effort to lighten it for children as much as we can, and we continue to do revisions anyway. So there is no extra burden for the child in this regard. And Kiswahili is going to be, it starts at P4. It does not start with the child in the thematic curriculum. Because in the thematic curriculum, we want the child
P4 then examinable at P7?
And the problem with our thinking and our mindset as Ugandans is that we always think that learning is about exams. And that's one of the things that we are fighting hard to correct. Let us not think about examination-driven learning. We want children to learn and they formatively get a test assessed. We call it assessment. We don't want to use,
and I agree with you 100%.
so that they continuously get to know how they are progressing. And that's one of the recommendations that was made by the late Professor Sente Zakajubi in the when he was recommending for the white paper. Education. That the local language and the Kiswahili language will be assessed formatively. It will be continuous assessment, such that by the time the child is completing P7, he has something to show. Not all assessment should be summative.
But also we've had changes with continuous assessment. Many of the times, as you rightly think about it, I know from the National Curriculum Development Center, you've recommended this, but I want to say, Doctor, what our schools have failed to do successfully is that continuous assessment.
Because they have had a previous mindset that they are struggling with, meaning that for you to know that you've taught, you must do an exam for one test. That is why one of the things that you are talking of exhaustion about the curriculum, no. It is because the schools at the implementation level of the curriculum, they have gone off to focus on exam. Beginning of term exam, mid of term exam, end of term exam. And when we calculated, we found that children were missing 2/3 of the term into being tested.
Yes.
And the question we've been asking is, testing them for what? What are we testing these
They are
children?
from a holiday, then you have beginning of term, which will carry 15%.
And the child should have enjoyed
15%.
and relaxed the brain during the holidays. So we've had a challenge, and we have tried to correct it in this new lower secondary curriculum to say that 20% of the marks will come from this continuously observing and seeing what the child is achieving, other than waiting at and you continue tailor-making children to do O-level exam. For 4 years, the children are terrorized with tests after tests, and we don't want that kind of teaching. Cramming work for now, and then they forget it after 2 months. And, you know, the whole thing has been disastrous.
How do you move away from that? Because that has been my dream, to see where we are running away from exams, then passing. Reason being, this has promoted rigging of exams. Because
and actually,
this has had children go through school with good grades, but yet they learned little.
Actually,
a person has very good grades, but tell them to apply their knowledge, 0. Give them a paper, 100%. Now it beats my understanding. But how do we get to that doctor? Because it is the desired education that we need, but we seem to be failing that.
Actually, what is exhausting children is that very examination-driven learning, which is very, very sad. And when we think about it, really, what we are doing to people's children, it is not about testing the child. It is about making the child to enjoy learning. And I'm glad I'm getting feelers that the new lower secondary curriculum is exactly shifting away from that exhaustion. The children are enjoying learning, they are participating in learning. I've been getting calls from all over saying, oh, the children have projects, they come with ideas every morning. When the child goes back home, he thinks of, oh, today I'm going in my class of biology, I'm going to talk about this. This is what we can do. So the children are participating and learning is happening. And we have discouraged those tests which they have been giving them every time. In some schools, they have been not teaching. Every time the teacher comes with a test. And you know, a test has a psychological effect on the brain or the mind of the person. Because you keep terrorized and thinking that you are going to be given a test, or what will you do? So it has been sad, but it is turning around, and we are sure we shall achieve it. The same thing, we are going back to the primary to try and again comb. Because yes, we talked about competency-based education curriculum, but some of our people have not really understood what it is, and we are saying we cannot achieve it all in one go. It is going to be gradual, so that we shift to actual learning to enough time. We reduced the content of the curriculum as much as we could for secondary. We really tried to reduce it, and I've been told the people who are implementing it are saying, yeah, it is much lighter, and the children are learning and actually down to the ground. Now, senior 1 and 2, we are constrained by COVID-19, but the takeoff is still to us comparable, and we are happy that we are getting to a certain level ground where we will achieve what we want in seeing that the quality of learning has improved in this country. So we want to do the same. Yes, I know you talked about private schools and whatever. Private schools can come for profit maximization, but they must know that they are offering a service, and this service they are offering is education, and it must conform to the quality standards that the government puts in place, so that we can have a child whom we would love to see. Not a child who has crammed things and passed exams, but who can do nothing, who cannot write even that English letter, who cannot even speak the English. And yet, when you research and go around, people in the 60s who learned in their mother tongue, they are very good in their English. Because you can easily learn the second and third language when you have a good mastery of your own mother tongue, for example. You can be able to pick and learn English and write it. So those are some of the scientific aspects that have been researched to say that when you have a good command of your own local language, you can be able to learn the second language and the third and the fourth. In Russia, for example, they have a multilingual approach. Children learn more than 5 languages, the Eastern Europe bloc, so that they can be able to fit in Eastern Europe, in Western Europe, and in everywhere. So they have, you find 5 languages. So learning a language is not a big deal in terms of thinking that we are going to put pressure on the children. There is no pressure. But let us not keep saying that we put these languages are there. With Kiswahili, we wrote the syllabus right from primary, secondary, and up to university. A number of universities are offering Kiswahili, you know it. Makerere University is one of the oldest, and in Chambogo and the Kabale University, and Bishop Stewart in Mbarara. So they are, and IU, they are offering Kiswahili. But when they offer, what about down at the bottom here? Where are the children whom they are getting to there?
Now, Doctor, let's also understand this. You talked about a primary teacher being well versed with all the subjects taught in primary. When we go to secondary, I remember we used to have these Swahili teachers, specifically teaching Swahili. And I want to know, how have people as stakeholders in the education sector perceived this, in case you've carried out research or something like that? Because I look at an additional teacher, maybe an additional teacher, that is going to specialize in teaching Kiswahili.
At secondary or primary?
At secondary. Two, that is the appropriate of this school. Then also primary, I look at, sometimes teachers seem to have so much on their table, primary teachers. So who is going to, is it out of teacher will that from now teach Kiswahili? How are you planning to ensure this is carried out smoothly? Because if I'm a headmaster, am I going to wake up and say, teacher so-and-so, now the Kiswahili teacher, teacher so-and-so, the Kiswahili teacher?
We provided a timetable when we were rolling out the primary curriculum, and the Kiswahili was given 3 periods a week. But because schools have been wanting to profit maximize and teach only subjects that are examined by NEB, they ignored. But the timetable is clear, and what to teach is clear. And sometimes when you go to the schools at primary, you see the timetable showing these subjects. But when you go to the class, the teacher is teaching mathematics.
Because I was going to tell you that
yes.
At least I have people I look after,
yes.
and I've never seen them.
And that's the mistake at implementation, which has been happening. So we programmed it. We have a timetable which gives Swahili 3 periods a week. And we know that the teachers have been posted and they are there, because when you come out, you have primary, grade 3 primary certificate, teaching certificate, one of the subjects you are able to teach is Kiswahili. And you can be deployed to teach. So the schools, I want to implore them to start following the timetable as has. We revised it some 2 years back, and the PS shared it, and it went to all the schools through the DISs to show that the primary school timetable has been adjusted to fit in ABCD. We want to implore them to implement the curriculum in its entirety. Don't implement the curriculum only to 5 subjects that are examined at the pen and paper level, what I call summative. Teach those that are also giving the child, because we want a whole child. We want a whole package, and the whole package to be received, to be got, has to do all those 8 areas. We have, let me repeat, the subjects at the primary level. We have English, we have integrated science, we have mathematics, we have social studies, we have RE, although at examination it is integrated social studies, but it is a subject on its own. We have local language, we have Kiswahili, and we have the CAPEs.
What are those? Creative
Arts and Performing Arts, and the creative arts and performing and physical education, CAPEs.
Those are not also examinable.
Those are not examinable by pen and paper at the end of the level, but they are supposed to be taught. And
now, don't you think that is where the confusion arises from?
We gave the timetable to the schools.
Because you know, a doctor, we must understand what are the challenges in our country and look for ways of addressing them. For example, if Kiswahili is to be assessed gradually, like you've said, I want to tell you, if I own a school and I'm maximizing profit, I wouldn't even bother looking for a teacher who's teaching Swahili. Look at those performing arts, physical education in schools. When we were in school, I was in Nakasero Primary School, but PE was a must. Today, we take our children to these schools and you ask PE, and the headmaster or headmistress has the audacity to even tell you,
and because they have
shifted. Your children are going to be playing, running physical education.
Because as I said,
they're learning mathematics. At the end of the day, we advertise twice out of 64, 63 have first grades. I'm not going to take my child to PE performing school.
Because they have shifted from the actual teaching and learning to examination-driven learning.
So as you who drive, what are you doing about that to get them
Of course,
back
we have
to
the
that?
inspectors of school. We have different mandates. The person who is the policeman, the mandate to make sure that the schools conform to the regulations and laws, because curriculum is like a policy of government, is the inspector of schools. And if you find the school is not doing what is expected, then you have the right to take a decision.
Yeah, and those ones
and
are
we have been, for us, our work has been...
I must say you've done your work. But if you're relying on school inspectors, doctor, I want to give you a very practical example. When you were in school our days, a school inspector would land abruptly. Check who are in class, who are not in class.
Of course.
Today, a school inspector is going to a school. The school is well aware, and they are prepared for him. They will tell you, take us early, daddy, to school, clean that, teachers are there. The school inspector is coming. There at the end of the day, he goes to the HM's office and moves away with a khaki envelope. Then makes a good report.
Yeah, because you were asking me what is it, I think that's where we have gotten it wrong. That's where things have maybe gotten it wrong. We need to come back and see that this inspector is a no joking inspector like the one we all knew, and that this inspector has a right to tell you why are you not taking, because one of the other, I was still going on, the other subject is local language and of course Kiswahili. Those are the subjects, actually they should be there at the primary level that we have programmed, that are there in the syllabus, that are in the curriculum, and that are in the curriculum framework for primary. For secondary, I have already said that Kiswahili is compulsory for all schools. And at secondary level, recently, I want to thank the Minister of Education and the Honorable Minister. They recruited 700 Kiswahili teachers to our secondary schools. The government aided, the government secondary schools have. They recruited and they are on the payroll, 700. And there are still very many teachers in the public who can be recruited because the universities are churning out these teachers, and they are there. Private schools need to be encouraged to recruit the Kiswahili teachers because they are there on the market. Don't go to Tanzania and Kenya for what? You have your own stock. You have the teachers. If government was able to recruit 700 recently, what about you, the private schools who have even maybe offer different remunerations? So the teachers are there. For primary, they are there because since 2014, I told you from my statistics here that the teachers are 64,000 as we talk, against 58,800 primary schools. And also for secondary, the government is recruiting them and they are already on board. And I'm happy. The children are enjoying learning Kiswahili at the senior 1 and 2, the few schools I have visited. And speaking it and having it fun. It has been provided for on the timetable. The only new dimension now, as the pronouncement came from Cabinet, is that we need to now have senior 3 and 4 prepare to continue teaching Kiswahili, such that that means the number of subjects that we were thinking they should cap at will be increased by 1. But which is for their own good.
Well, which is for their own good. When this announcement was made, a number of parents went quaking and grew goose pimples, wondering how they'll be able to handle issues of homework for those that do, holiday packages for those that do. But Doctor, let me have your final remarks.
Let me say something about that. That in the new curriculum, this business of holiday packages, homework and whatever is not there. The children are supposed to be we're teaching them critical thinking. They should be bringing something. So this business of burdening children with all sorts of everyday homework, which they do up to midnight, is not encouraged. Let the children learn in the time that is programmed so that this brain also needs some kind of refreshing. It's so that when it goes back home, it rests and then comes back to the rigor of learning. So there is nothing like overburdening them with another subject which is going to be having another homework. No, no.
Your parting shot.
I want to thank the viewers this morning who are looking at us and to say that I'm happy that the Minister of Education and Sports, headed by Honorable Janet Kata Museveni, had already prepared this good groundwork to take off with Kiswahili. And that Kiswahili being compulsory is not a new thing. It has been there. We only now, I'm happy that Cabinet has and teach and enable children to be multilingual so that they can have better opportunities in the future. You prepare an African child for an unknown future because you don't know where the globe will throw this child and where it will find. That's why our Ugandan children have continued to shine all over the world I get comments that people ask, did you study from Uganda? That's a very important question, meaning that you look different from others. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Grace Baguma, who is the Executive Director, National Curriculum Development Center. Now, our children will fully study and understand Kiswahili. Remember, it's one of the most 10 spoken languages in the world. When I was in Zambia some years back, people were speaking Kiswahili. Zimbabwe, they do speak Swahili. South Africa, well, even a bit of the Arab countries, Yemen, they will find some bit of Kiswahili. And come to East Africa, well, it is the language. Have a lovely day. Ruben is here with a basket full of interesting stories in the world of sports. God bless you.
Okay.